So give me a sign.
Nikolai, give you a sign and...
Yeah.
Maybe we could only do a sound check. Would you prefer me to with
okay.
microphone or without it? Without microphone would be like that. With microphone. Okay, okay, sure. The answer is...
To ty siadaj już, siadaj mój drogi, usiądźmy cię tam.
Okay. To ja wstanę zaraz.
Tylko się wsuń, że mnie
Greetings to all of you gathered today at the Angelicum University, as well as our online audience behind the screens. On behalf of St. John Paul II Institute of Culture, I would like to warmly welcome you to this academic year's last lecture of the JP2 Lecture series. Our guest speaker today is Professor Jarosław Kilian, art historian, theater director and professor at the National Academy of Dramatic Art in Warsaw. Welcome, Professor. This lecture, as well as the entire JP2 Lecture series, could not have taken place without the support of our university authorities, whom I would like to thank. Special thanks are also owed to the supporters and donors of St. John Paul II Institute of Culture. The St. John Paul II Institute of Culture was established to look at the challenges facing the modern world at the church in light of the life and thought of St. John Paul II. The idea of thinking with John Paul II has been embodied in the JP2 Lecture series, which are monthly lectures of prominent interdisciplinary scholars who revisit the extraordinary contribution of John Paul II for our own day. Now, I'm pleased to give the floor to Dr. Dariusz Karłowicz, the initiator of the JP2 Lecture series and the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture Program Director. Dariusz Karłowicz will share more about today's special guest.
Good afternoon, dear friends. It's my honor to introduce to you Professor Jarosław Kilian, who is a professor of the National Academy of Dramatic Art in Warsaw. He's an art historian and stage theater director. He held scholarship of the British Council and the US Department of State. As a stage director, he trained under a guidance of Peter Brook in Vienna. Since 2016, bis 2024, has been the director of the Theater Lalka in Warsaw, theater settled by his grandmom during Second World War in Iran, if I'm not...
In Uzbekistan.
In Uzbekistan.
But it's not private theater.
He has directed operas, outdoor performances, plays for children, and primarily stage performances of European and Polish classic masterpiece of Molière, Shakespeare, Juliusz Słowacki, and Alexander Fredro, and many others. In his lecture entitled Quem Quaeritis, Theatre in the Search for Meaning, starting from the question posed by the angels at Christ's tomb to the three Marys, the Virgin Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the sister of Lazarus, Jarosław Kilian will reflect on the searches that theater faces today. What is the meaning of theater nowadays? What does it seek? What does it want to tell? How to explain the paradox that theater is a lie that makes us realize the truth? Professor Kilian, the floor is yours.
Thank you for introduction. Welcome, dear guests. It's a great privilege, first of all, to say honestly, to have in this sanctuary of wisdom, theology, and philosophy, simple-minded theater maker And I will try to share with you, not as a theoretician, but as a practitioner. Quem Quaeritis, the eminent theater historian Zbigniew Raszewski begins his excellent short history of Polish theater with a paragraph. Quem Quaeritis, whom do you seek? From these words, partly spoken, partly sung, according to an ancient custom, still stemming from antiquity, Christian theater began. Christian theater began. The Latin question, Quem Quaeritis, refers to 4 lines of the medieval Easter liturgy that later formed the kernel of the large body of medieval liturgical drama, which is also known as Visitatio Sepulchri, visit to the tomb. It was introduced into liturgy in the 10th century as a new genre of liturgical ceremony. The Quem Quaeritis was an exchange of 1 question, 1 answer, and 1 command between the angel at Christ's tomb and 3 Marys. Although short, this expert of text would later snowball into a huge body of religious medieval plays and evolve into the various genres such as liturgical drama and mystery plays. This question, whom are you looking for? What are you looking for? It's not only about medieval theater, but about, I believe, all theatrical quests of humanity. Basically, it's about discovering the invisible reality, about the meeting point of man with supernatural. Who is there? Do you remember? Who is there? Thus begins Shakespeare's Hamlet. The encounter with a ghost, with a supernatural being who steps into reality, and both guys, Horatio is Wittenberg-educated person. He doesn't believe in ghosts, and thus he sees the ghost in fear and wonder. And this apparition of a ghost opens the entire path of the character's adventure in Hamlet. Everything happens because ghosts appear, and he wants something from us, from Hamlet, from the other person. In theater, the invisible becomes visible. In fact, theater is concerned with making things they are invisible to us visible through the language and technologies of theater. Maintaining proportions, toute proportion gardée, in theater the word becomes flesh. But, as you remember, I'm switching back to Hamlet, Hamlet says, give his advice to actors. From the purpose of playing, whose end both at the first and now was and is to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her own features, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time, his form and pressure. This is inquiry into the theater's peculiar access to a reality that may transcend the real, the timelessness of the theatrical experience, the simultaneity of engagement and detachment. Through the theater, we may think and feel with a reality which is subjective, but at the same time allows an objective view of ourselves as participants in a world which takes no account of our individual perceptions. Chapter 1, Classics in Theater. Great texts still delineate the framework of our beliefs and serve as scaffolding upon which we erect further structures. The classics are an ever-flowing source, Within them lies an energy that has the ability to animate successive generations. There is a Latin saying, pro captu lectoris habent sua fata libelli. The fate of books depends on the receptivity or talent of the reader. The fate of classics in theater depends on the talents and sensitivities of those readers, makers, spectators, who take the classics into their theatrical workshop or theatrical experience. Great classical texts remind me of a chest unearthed from the depths of the sea. If you find a lockpick, or better a key to it, we'll discover more hidden chests within it. And within those chests, farther unopened trunks, cases, and cans left there for subsequent seekers. I still hope that if I find the key to this unopened chest, I'll manage to unlock it and reveal the secret and unseen treasures within. The most precious treasures in the story of the most precious treasure is the story of ourselves. Each successive generation is given the opportunity to unearth further hidden chests. Why does true classicism possess such energy and power? My teacher, and Professor Karłowicz's too, Wiesław Juszczak, beautifully articulated it. Its authors, classical texts, poets, playwrights, painters, those most sensitive to the mysteries of existence and the world, recreated in their works the living fabric of a myth. The concept of classicism is also tied to the notion of tradition. Classicism is rooted in tradition. However, theater should always pose question to its times, as Hamlet advises. I understand tradition as a dynamic phenomenon, subject to transformation and constant development. Such a living tradition allows us to approach what is important in increasingly novel ways to approach problems using new concepts and artistic means. Tradition should thus remain a point of reference in the search for modernity. In this understanding, innovation is the other side of the same coin. Complementing the pursuit of preceders. I believe in the significance of returning to classicism, which allows us to rediscover, reinterpret it anew. Theater must uncover hidden meanings within it and clothe them in surprising forms on the stage. Each spectator experiencing ancient stories find the image of themselves in the surrounding contemporary world. Engaging with great texts is an essential return to the origins of what shaped us and an attempt to answer the question of who we are, a question posed not only by each new generation of readers, but also by artists. I'll switch now to the synthesis presented by Romanian origin French writer Georges Banu and theater theoretician and critic, who puts to present those two coins of, or two images of theater. Georges Banu writes, theater is divided and has been facing this division since the emerge of staging. Two camps oppose each other, both defining themselves in terms of their radicality. These are the ones who have shaped the destiny of European stage, while the rest, the undecisive and the lukewarm, have been vomited out, as declared in Apocalypsis cum figuris, who directed Jerzy Grotowski, the founder of most important theater performative switch in 20th century. Jerzy Grotowski liked and used biblical references to conflict opposing steadfast enemies to conciliators who round out the rough edges, soothe confrontations and make compromises without explicitly taking sides. What are these camps facing each other? On one hand, we have theater people indicting theater in order to improve it and to arrive to some point of some kind of original essence. This group has Gordon Craig as a leader, joined by the advocates of the empty space, from Poe to Peter Brook, with Grotowski and his poor theater and its extreme. They are all invested in the effort to save theater by elimination and by achieving a purity of the actor-audience relationship. They say it's enough to create theater space, to have an actor and a spectator, and the rest doesn't matter. One who performs and one who is a witness of this performance. The other group unites artists mobilizing theater resources, summoning and exalting them in the name of common dream without any reluctance or suspicion. We could mention here Meyerhold, Ariadne Mnuchin, Bob Wilson, Giorgio Streller, Andrzej Wajda, Peter Stein. They make theater without any reservation, indulging in the exercise of their art. They identify with its spirits, embrace it, cultivate it, and work wholeheartedly for its fulfillment. They assert trust in theater, a trust without any suspicions, allowing them to roll out theatrical expression in all its diversity, to highlight sources of beauty, and to represent tragic cases of desperation. I'll go back for a while to Jerzy Grotowski, whose path went beyond the theater. He first invented the idea, speaking in simplified terms, of course, of poor theater, reducing it to the spectator and actor. This is the essence of theater. Nothing more is needed. However, Grotowski went further. He gave up the spectator, closed himself off from them. He arrived to the point when he had theater in his mind. And then in Pontadera, he conducted philosophical laboratory experiments and crossed the boundaries towards philosophy, theater without theater. It's very close to the experiment of Kazimierz Malewicz, who painted black square on the white, something or on nothing. And then he reached to the white square on the white panel, nothing on nothing. So he opened the way to the conceptual theater, to the path of philosophy. And Grotowski treated theater as the vehicle of transgression. He studied first Indian mythology, then he went back to Bible, and then he get rid of an actor, spectator, and follow his path of approaching transcendency, getting rid of all which he found unnecessary. There are two examples from his plays, The Constant Prince and The Apocalypsis Cum Figuris. Peter Brook says, a man walks across his empty space while someone else is watching him, and this is all that is needed for an act of theater to be engaged. Thus he creates something honest, a human connection. And from that connection, the audience's inner emotions are called forth, they are moved. This connection is based on the agreement of the unreality of theater. The best example is again from literature. Do you remember when Don Quixote was observing a puppet theater on Maestro Pedro, and he attacked marionettes and puppets to save a virgin from the hands of oppressors. It's here on the beautiful image of Gustave Doré, an illustration for Don Quixote. The essence of it is that Don Quixote does not lost the sense of reality, but he lost the sense of unreality of the theatrical event. Chapter 2, Metaphor. A Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 3, Scene 1. Queens. Well, it shall be so, but there are two hard things. That is to bring the moonlight into a chamber. For you know, Pyramus and Thisbe meet by moonlight. Snout. Does the moon shine that night we play our play? Bottom. A calendar. Look in the almanac. Find the moonshine. Find out moonshine. Queens. Yes, it does shine that night. Bottom. Why? Then may you leave a casement of the great chamber window where we play open, and the moon may shine in at the casement. Aye, Queen's answer. Or else one must come in with a bush of thorns and lantern and say he comes to disfigure or to represent the person of moonshine. Then there is another thing. We must have a wall in this great chamber. For Pyramus and Thisbe, says the story, did talk through the chink of a wall. Snout. You can never bring in a wall. What say you, Bottom? The question posed by Athenians craftsmen, how to present a moon, is one of the fundamental questions of theater. But the craftsman's problem is not only about the moon, how to present or imagine a lion, a wall, death. The Athenian craftsmen during the play's rehearsal make a brilliant invention. They discover theatrical metaphor. Forgive me, father professors, philosophers. According to Aristotle, a metaphor is a transfer of the name to one thing to another, from genus to species, from species to genus, from the one species to another, or the transfer of a name based on analogy. In 20th century humanistic thought, metaphor gains new definition as is attributed an important role not only in poetics and literary theories, though the ability to metaphorize, create analogies, and juxtapose different contexts, humans discover new ways of seeing. Joseph Weizenbaum, one of the most important computer scientists of the 20th century, argues that almost everything we know, including serious science, is based on metaphor. The Polish poet, he used to call himself a priest who used to be a poet, the Polish poet Jan Twardowski wrote that a poetic metaphor is a meeting of words that are surprised by each other. Some believe that everything we come to know in the world is based on metaphor. Metaphorization is an attempt to understand and master the world. The very act of theater, embodying a character, is also metaphorization. After all, it's not Hamlet who stands on the stage, but a person named Benedict Cumberbatch, or Teresa Budzisz-Krzyżanowska, as Father Professor remembers for all his life, or Tom Hiddleston, who plays Hamlet. Metaphor is at the core of acting. The very act, the English word and the Latin word to act means both to do and to play. The very act of an actor is a metaphorical activity. It involves juxtaposing the reality of the actor's body with the unreal character the actor plays or portrays. The illusion of reality that appears on the stage thanks to the actor becomes the reality of illusion. It's Jan Kot quotation. In the realization of roles, there are also acting actions that are potent, strongly affecting the viewer's imagination as theatrical metaphor. I will quote only one example. I remember this place when one of the greatest Polish actors played Salieri in Peter Sheffer's Amadeus, directed by Roman Polański in one of Warsaw theaters. And it was the moment not written in the play, but when Salieri takes a score of Requiem and he reads it, but he can hear it as we can hear it because he hears the music. And he's so puzzled, so wondered by this amazing music, that in an act of jealousy, it turns Mozart, it tore Mozart's score to shreds with an act of jealousy. And then happened something strange. Sister Betty is here. God bless you, sister. Good to see you. He tore down to pieces, and then on his knees, this is without any words, in total silence, on his knees, he's collecting those scraps of paper from the ground, and he eats them like broken hosts. The wonderment of this music make an actor, inspired the actor to this act, which is purely a great theatrical metaphor. In Greek, an actor is hypokritos. In the Bible, there is a repeated exhortation: do not be like the hypocrites. The literal translation is do not be actors. Here the word hypokritos appears. Those who play a learned role are hypocrites, deceivers. Acting is close to the devil's art because it's imitating God. Because imitating God is a sinful act and has something of satanic craftsmanship. To better understand the essence of acting, I will gladly use another biblical comparison. Again, toute proportion gardée. At the beginning of acting is a word, but understood precisely in the biblical sense as a logos. The word logos means sense, meaning. In the beginning there was a word. In the beginning was a sense. So it's not just about the spoken words and sentences. It's about the text, the score, the partition. The word sense, intent, though, incarnates. The actor lends his body to the word and gives it shape. He feels it with his own physicality. In the theater, through the actor and in the actor, the incarnation of word takes place. This procedure is somewhat suspicious. And for this reason, the church has had problems accepting acting for years. Comedians did not have the best ratings for a long time. The actor is the only true executor of the character created by the author. It happens that thanks to the actor's artistry and the an additional value is created. And from the or which the drama, a complete work of art is born, incarnated on stage and completed with the actor's imagination. The basic element of acting remains the principle of imitation, mimesis. Diderot's postulate of observing, imitation, and fidelity to nature contained in the paradox of the actor remains relevant. The actor's role is an artistic transformation of behaviors known from the observation of his own experience. Acting is a mimetic technique. Actors often are excellent observers of the world and human reactions. They can translate these experiences into the actions of stage characters. The actor can hold the mirror up to nature, or imitate the essence of nature. It is a creative act. Then it happens that the played characters begins to live its own life. It begins to understand more than the actor himself, acting almost beyond his control, finding the right emotions, gestures, actions directly. This is a paradox. From behind the actor's mask, truth peeps through. Thanks to the actor, what is artificial becomes real. In contemporary theater, after their performative turn, actors no longer embody characters. The actor or a dancer or a performer simply is not a hanger of signs, does not play another character, but within the performance, as a person acting on the stage, speaks in his own name. Often he subjects himself and his body to an experiment. It happens that the actor performing during such an experiment seeks himself in his reactions in specially adopted circumstances such as nudity, sexual activities, psychological activities, self-harm, pain. To best explain this performative third, the goal of this performative third, I will refer to words of Polish grandfather of performing art, Zbigniew Warpechowski, who said once that performance is a prayer for divine coincidence, to reveal what he wants really from me. The actor is just an actor, and a lot more than just an actor. As it was centuries ago, so it's today, taking us, the viewers, on a journey beyond the everyday world. This is the mission and task of this profession. Actors have gained an important position in social and political life in 20th century. It also happened in a history that a certain actor became pope and saint. Next chapter, the inspiration to this chapter comes from this room. I enter here, I have been entering here past 2 weeks, and here on the floor you can see the coat of arms of Dominican order with the motto Veritas. So the next chapter would be the truth. On the floor of lecture hall 11, I've seen the Dominican cross and the motto Veritas. The category of truth seems to be a fundamental point of reference even for theater. But there is a paradox here. How can theater, a phenomenon that is artificial, which is untrue, be true? Where can truth be found in theater? Can an actor, called Hypokritos in Greek, be a carrier of truth? What truth could be meant here? Picasso said, art is a lie that makes us realize the truth. Perhaps we can understand art as a means to the acquisition of truth. Art has even been called the avenue to the highest knowledge available to human, and to a kind of knowledge impossible of attainment by any other means. Shakespeare in The Winter's Tale sets part of the action on the seacoast of Bohemia. But the fact that Bohemia has no seacoast does not damage the Winter's Tale as a literature, though it would as geography. The fact that Jonathan Swift, used no existing lands described in Gulliver's Travels, 1726, in any way diminish Swift's work. What is the truth in theater? Just a very simple example. I don't know if you noticed and you spotted such an interesting moment in theater. The performance is boring, like a wet blanket. Our eyes are glued shut. You're slowly falling asleep. Suddenly, actor forgets their lines. And then you wake up. You notice it, in spite of boredom around there. Something unexpected happens. Have you experienced that? That's the moment of truth. A strange thing, even this artificial world, there is a moment of truth. The truth is like a bolt from the blue. Such a paradox of truth in unreal reality, which is itself very metaphorical. The moment of truth has appeared. Life has appeared in this boardroom. This is what Stanisławski attempted to recreate in his theater and theatrical treatise at the end of 19th, beginning of 20th century, which became the starting point of contemporary theater. It was there the source of inspiration for Grotowski and the entire school of Lee Strasberg, Elia Kazan, from which the most important actor of 20th century American cinema emerged. Stanisławski had a wonderful experience that he, during rehearsal, asked actors to play, he showed them a curtain and he said, just play, they are looking a needle in this huge curtain. So they started to play during the casting. And it was awful. And then Stanisławski said, but there is a real needle in this curtain. Who will find it will get his part. And they started to do it totally in the opposite way. So the whole way of Stanisławski with actor's task was effort to recreate a real life in theater. Brook, again. Truth in theater is always on the move. As you read this book, it's already moving out of date. It is for me an exercise, now frozen on the page. But unlike a book, the theater has one special characteristic. It is always possible to start again. In life, this is myth. We ourselves can never go back on anything. New leaves never turn. Clocks never go back. We can never have a second chance. In the theater, the slate is whipped clean all the time. In everyday life, if is a fiction. In the theater, if is an experimental. In everyday life, if is an evasion, but in theater, if is the truth. When we are persuaded to believe in this truth, then the theater and life are one. This is the high aim. It sounds like a hard work. Two plays need much work, but when we experience the work as play, there is not work anymore. A play is a play. Theater may rely on honestly revealing what is untrue. In this lies the connection and paradox of truth in theater. The two words of Peter Brook's theater are its audience and its actors. According to Brook, the actors bring the world of the imagination to meet with the audience, world of everyday, but instead to temporary suspension of belief in the everyday world, which a Western audience has traditionally forced upon itself. Brook conceives the true theatrical experience as incarnation between the two models of reality, those of imagination and mundane. At the beginning of every Japanese classical no performance, which is somehow crystallized in 15th century and it's preserved up till now, in the very beginning of every performance, there is an actor approaching the stage with a fan. And he cuts the space into two parts. Then with his hand, very slowly, the half of the audience is already sleeping, but it's not an issue because it's a different way of perceiving word. This half of the space is taken away by this fan. So the everyday space is out. We are entering in the new space of a performance, which is timeless, frozen in time. The next chapter is about narrative, the epic element in theater. Constructing a narrative, in my belief, is the primary task of the director. Hamlet could be a political story, could be a melodrama, could be a love story, could be a crime story, but whatever it is, you have to tell the story. If you tell the story, the other genre could appear. The theatrical actions constitute on the fundamental ways of storytelling in theater. Staging is a process by which a script, drama, is dressed in theatrical form. It is the realization to the text in space and time. Storytelling in theater interests me from the perspective of utilizing staging inventions. I would describe these techniques as storytelling vehicles through which audience follow the story unfolding on the stage. Journey. The theme that often recurs in not only in my productions but in nearly all theatrical production is the journey. This thread has accompanied me almost since my directorial debut. The traveler is Odysseus and his puppet version Pinocchio. The traveler is Sinbad the sailor and Dorothy heading in the land of Oz. Characters from Shakespeare set out on a journey escape in a Midsummer Dream, As You Like It, Winter's Tale. I try to talk about the journey not only as an escape, forgetfulness, or days, but as an expedition that changes a person from within, a path into oneself. Its property is that the course cannot be precisely predicted. Adventure and the unknown of the journey toward the most carefully laid plans. What happens accidentally is sometimes more important than the assumed goals. The lovers of Shakespearean Midsummer Night Dream must wonder before, after adventure they fight the right person. Orlando and Rosalind Ganymede in As You Like It, forced to flee to the forest of Arden, change beyond recognition in new condition. Sinbad sailing the seas and experiencing adventures like Candide, with undying optimism, follows his imagination, opening up of what fate will bring. Ulysses return homes through the abysses of Hades, fighting against fate and hostile gods, hoping that the journey will cleanse him of the horrors of war. Traveling means becoming temporarily foreign and moving for a relatively short time into unknown territory. But that terrain is not only unknown places. places, but also unknown people, custom, languages. Confrontation with the unfamiliar becomes a confrontation with oneself, a path to self-knowledge. Confrontation, one always returns from the journey somehow different, changed, wiser. According to the Jonathan Fogler, which wrote a script of writing, a manual of writing scripts, and is based on Campbell's works. According to Fogler, the hero's journey turns into a quest for the elixir. It is the elixir brought from the journey, acquired, rescued, torn from the forces of evil, healing potion, treasure of knowledge, a holy grail. Dorothy returns to Kansas with the awareness that she is loved, and there is no place like home. The wooden Pinocchio, reaching the bottom and landing in the belly of whale, becomes a real boy. Odysseus restores order in his own home and life. The lovers from Midsummer Night Dream find each other and discover what true love is. The hero of these stories most head towards utopia. The motive of utopia is another thread that connects most of my theatrical productions. Utopia is the place that does not exist, a non-place, a good place. Utopia is previously described, Utopian is the previously described land of Oz, the Athenian forest when lovers misled by Puck find themselves, the forest of Arden in As You Like It, where political enemies take refuge. The most widely, the theme of utopia reveals itself in Shakespeare's The Tempest. Prosperous Islands is utopia, and it's an utopia that shows the impossibility of endurance and crumbles before the eyes of the one who creates it. In the staging of Tempest, on the bright on the bright scrubbered boards of the stage of the theater, menacingly jagged tree trunks appear broken by hurricane brought from the Puszcza Piska forest. You can see spotlights, a wind machine throw onto the shore of the sea, a broken piano, clouds, sea, waves, sprinkles, or windbreaks also appears in the projection of photographs by Edward Harvey. Prospero takes refuge in this theatrical world. He is the director on his utopian island stage, which was to be obedient to him. He wants to subject all creatures inhabiting this place to power and create a new, wonderful world. The former prince and mag rules with art, but in the end must renounce that harsh magic. He returns from the utopian world to Milan. He gained true freedom and find forgiveness for his brother, who took away his duchy. Prospero decides to abandon magic and becomes an ordinary man again. Because of Miranda, who loves and wants to return to the real world, her father gives up theatrical charms, throws off the magic cloak, and breaks the staff. He understands that both he and his airy spirits are only raw material from which dreams are made. The return to Milan is the destruction of the theater and its inhabitants, Ariel and Caliban. Since then, every third of Prospero's thoughts will be a thought of the grave. I'm slowly getting to the end, not to keep you too long. The last chapter is opera. The desire to recreate ancient Greek tragedy inspired the creators of Camerata Florentina, who at the end of 16th century wanted to somehow reenact or recreate Greek tragedy. The names like Bardi, Galilei, Caccini, and later on the great divine Monteverdi. They created drama per musica, from which modern opera derives. Like the Renaissance creators, they believe that accompanied monody and music subordinate to the word have the power to affect listeners and viewers. The music of ancient Greece guarded virtue, make the cruel gentle, the faint-hearted brave, calmed the agitated, and enhanced the acuteness of minds, emphasized one of the Camerata members, Vincenzo Galilei. By the way, Galileo Galilei's father. According to this concept, music combined with words was to reproduce specific feelings as accurately as possible. The most important aspects of drama per musica was the expression of passion. In opera, I focus primarily on interpreting and understanding the score. Opera is indeed the theater of the score, and everything, emotions and meaning contained within the work derives from the score. Sometimes, while engaging with and working on masterpiece of music, I had to confess that I had a feeling that truly great art is not a human thing. It is a stream of beauty that simply flows through humans. Opera is a world of conventions and limitations. It has a wonderful artificiality through which the truth is revealed. It's a place where time truly stops, and all senses serve to perceive the refined and hidden essence of reality. It is the most splendid form of theater because it's conventionalized, wise, recorded in time, imposes limitations, and thus artistic discipline. Finding oneself within this wonderful scheme outlined by brilliant composers is the most beautiful and important experience for a director. A friend of mine, great Polish opera director Richard Perrett, considered the score to be a kind of book of the spirit, and therefore it should be treated, read, and reread as such. For this reason, we want to reread the score to bring it to life. In his artistic journey, he implemented the convention that theology shaped musicology. The word has become a song. Was that language like the fire reminding of the burning bush of Moses, and the sign and the singing sanctified for earth from which it was born. The biblical context concerned all music. It was a symbolic echo of the voice of God, Vox Dei. This is only to share with you it's from Gulliver's Travels, when the double reality was exposed to share with the production of Rinaldo by Handel. Just a few images inspired by the paintings of Uccello, and some influenced as well by a choreographer I work with, a Japanese Buto dancer. Switching slowly to the end, the last line, Pro domo sua, sorry for that. The director's path. I choose theater as one of the few art forms, it has an aesthetic characteristic, which is its transience, that it disappears. Something happens here for the viewer once, in this very moment, in this place, and is essentially unique. And this uniqueness of element of risk and surprise is exceptionally beautiful and important in theater. The tranches of theater art constantly moves and captivates viewers, spectators, and theater makers as well. I read a very wise book about Japanese aesthetics, which was very difficult to understand, but at the end, Iga Rodowicz explains that it's difficult for us to understand why the cherry blossom is more beautiful than the apple blossom. Cherry blossom lasts not so long as apple blossom. That's why it's so beautiful. So it does not last long. So that's the element of beauty. So it's not firmitas as we got used, but somehow transience of it. That's the art of theater, I think, as well. Today, I must confess, thanks to an experience as well here in Angelicum, a theatrical experience with unprofessional students, with Karol Wojtyła plays, with Karol Wojtyła poetry. It makes me thinking a bit different in theater, in directing. I think I'm more interested in a director who is only a catalyst, enabling a chemical reaction to occur. A director, an evoker, understood in double meaning of this word, both as the chemical reagent and a summoner of spirits. The director evokes what is hidden in the music and the meaning of the text, and lashes the imagination of actors, which is the basic thing, scenographers, and opens up to unexpected. Then we can approach the mystery, maybe sometimes even touch it. I will quote again an anecdote which is important for me now as a director and a teacher of directing. Once an assistant to Albert Einstein saw a boy on Lake Geneva trying to skip stones on the water. The boy was having a hard time. The young scholar approached him, picked up a flat stone, and showed him how to perfectly skip stones. And the stone gracefully skipped 7 times. However, the boy replied that he didn't actually want the stone to bounce off the water surface. I want the stone to leave square ripples, he said. The assistant relayed the incident to his master. Einstein responded, "You see, you think stereotypically, and this boy reaches for the impossible with imagination. This child may someday make great discoveries. Once I wanted to be like the young scholar and skip perfect stones on the water and teach how to perfectly throw stones. Today, I would prefer to be like that boy who perhaps better understood what the art of skipping stones was really about." And I will go back to the beginning of this lecture. Interrogatio. Quem quaeritis in sepulchro. Responsio. Iesum Nazarenum Angeli non est hic surrexit sicut predixerat ite nuntia qui surrexit de sepulchro. I wish I could answer the question Quem Quaeritis the same way. Thank you.
Professor Kilian, thank you for your most interesting lecture. Now we have time for questions from the audience. Please use the microphone.
I can ask myself again. So, can you switch microphone to me?
Thank you for that talk. I'm just, there's a theater here in Rome, and I go walking, and sometimes they have like a screen outside, you know, with those scenes to attract people, I guess, to see. And I'm struck by the, maybe they show it because it kind of catches your eye, but the scenes are like large groups of people, and they're, to me, like they're doing very violent motions. You don't see anything smooth. It's like jerk, 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 jerk. Is that a tendency? I mean, is that something that's more common in theater, or am I just seeing something that's exceptionally, to me, strange? Because it's like I'm not seeing anything that's really kind of pleasant. It's like they're making an attempt just to like, just jerky, very jerking, you know, violent motions from one end to the other. Is that a tendency in theater?
But to be precise, maybe we can find those images. Yeah? You were referring to...
It's in a theater here in Rome. And as you walk on the street, they have a screen out. You can see it as you're walking by. You don't have to go in. And it's theater or something or other. And they have a big screen, you know, it's like a TV screen. And they're like advertising the, you know, whatever the productions. And when I go by, I just glance out of curiosity, and they're always very violent motions. Violent motions. I don't see anything that's...
I think that's the way of, one of the way doing now that you have to be harsh, violent. That's the, I would call it a sort of the fashion. So, but you can find some opera performances like we saw here in Rome, a brilliant version of Janufa by Janacek, which was somehow taken out from the score following the music. I can hardly answer, but of course there is a sort of the fashion that you have of the brutality, of violence and brutality, which is as well a well-packed product. It sells well. So I'm afraid that what you saw, it's just a part of this fashion which switches theater to this violent and harsh version of presenting things. Mm-hmm.
Please wait for a microphone.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your lecture. It was very interesting. I wanted to ask you something to do with what you were talking about regarding truth, because you mentioned that, sorry, I have to check my notes. You mentioned that theater may honestly reveal what is untrue, and at the same time, it can reveal truth. I think what I wanted to say is that in the modern age, a lot of people don't agree about what truth is. I think people in this room probably will come to a consensus and have the same idea. But when we talk about truth and using theater as a a vehicle to discover truth or discover untruth, as the case may be, do you think it's a limitation now, considering the fact that people don't even agree that what truth can be, or they think truth is subjective?
It's extremely difficult question, but I will refer to what we are trying to discover. Maybe that could be a good answer. What we are trying to discover during the seminar at Teologia Polityczna, seminar led by Professor Karłowicz and Professor Bishop Jacek Grzybowski, about Christian art or holy art, or it's hard to say. And there was a kind of discovery for me that the truth in art concerns, I wish I could discover it myself, but with help we discovered it, concerns the 8th commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And it's about 8th commandment. That's the truth. So that's the truth. You mean that I mean that being honest with your conscience, and it's the possibly broad explanation what the truth in art is. But in a way, I believe that's a way. There's way of faith. There's way of science, and maybe there is a way of art to know the truth, to find the truth. But I think the broad answer is about 8th commandment, which is your discovery or our discovery at the seminar.
Thank you.
Since the invention of the internet and smartphones, it seems like people are exposed to a lot more entertainment, a lot more videos. They're seeing people doing theater-like things on the screen a lot more than they did in the past. Have you found that that's changed, that both the way that the actors and directors create theater and the way that audiences receive it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, but I think that it helps a lot to understand the originality and language of theater, which is a way, which is far away from all those modern technologies. Of course, technology can be used in theater. We've got wonderful lighting, everything's well packed now. More and more we had like no theater director or actors or film showrunners who everything is so perfect. But in a way, if I may come back to opera, that's totally different. So this issue somehow is taken apart. Why they are singing, why they are dying for half an hour in the opera. They are dying for half, but I do understand. When I directed opera, I had a problem. It was my first opera. I talked with a very brilliant singer that I shared the problem. You know, it's really difficult to plan it for half an hour dying. If it's, but she said, but you know, that's the essence of the opera. The time stops there. So it's celebrating the moment. And even in the Baroque opera, there is the capo. You die for another quarter. because it's so beautiful in terms of music. So this da capo make the time frozen for a while. It makes the time frozen. So I do believe that people theater will not die under the technology, under all this technique, because people would be there to always for the human connection, for this connection which cannot be replaced by online classes or even by the most wonderful three-dimensional stuff. So it's rather this technologically advanced bring us back to the source, to have the real theater, which is the same from the very beginning.
So thank you for very provocative ideas. I'd been thinking something similar to on the lines of this young lady here, because especially one thinks of gender. Everything is performative. I am a man only because I choose to be a man, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking theater, and you spoke about reality. I was trying to wrap my head around this question, and then it struck me. Quem Quaeritis? Who are you seeking? And the answer perhaps lies in that episode you refer to. Who is she seeking? Is she seeking the self, or is she seeking God? And I think this is where, because a lot of gender theory, you are in fact seeking, you're performing yourself, and you're seeking yourself. At the end of the day, it's a never-ending search, and perhaps the focus of our search needs to be different. Sorry.
In a way, that I meant to say, but yeah, that's what I meant to say. So that's why this crucial dialogue, which is in the starting point of theater, maybe is the goal of theater, and we should remember about it. That it may happen. This, in a way, to be honest, it's not about the quality of this production, but somehow what we did with, here is Sister Betty, with Job by Wojtyła 2 years ago, and last year with our God's Brother, was somehow this common effort to answer this question: whom are we looking for? Through the text of Wojtyła. Yes, Father, thank you.
May I add a word? Because we feel certain opposition when we hear about the art that it may be a lie. Because we all agree that art may be an entertainment game, reset.
And it certainly is.
That it may be not only about truth, but about beauty, about harmony, etc. And that's all true. My feeling is that what you describe is focused on a certain sphere, which is top of an human art. In fact, it is a kind of art which might be an element of worship, and which is about truth. Not all art should be and must be about truth. It's entertainment. It's a pretty important thing in our life, let's agree. I mean, it's nothing bad in resting in theater or amusement. But that's that part about true. And here the problem comes, and I think that what you, Jason says, it's a very good point, because it's a problematic sphere which comes from evolution of in a history of philosophy, in fact. I mean, from the very moment, let's say, conventionally we say from Descartes, we are seeking through ourselves. That what we once put on our seminaries, that maybe that's a difference between religious and sacral art. That religious art is about that what an artist think on a sacral. So the artist is a main object, his feeling, his emotions, his thought. That's a religious art. I mean, you can't put it in a church because you are not worshipping artists. I mean, if you are not worshipping artists, of course, because after romantic revolution, it's not as obvious. But of course, we do not agree on that. And when we talk about sacral art, we start to talk about problem of truth. And if you are talking about truth, it's of course, we all know that definition of adequatio veritatis ad intellectum, but what's important in that convention of adequacy is that true art may be only about reality. It's not, because art may be beautiful and nice and be completely autotelic. I mean, it may be about art, about many things, but only in the moment when it's about reality, it may start to be lie or true. Okay? That I think. And it's not a question of convention, because you used, of course, metaphorically the word lie, because, of course, convention is not an intentional lie. It's a way of, it may be a way of talking about reality. But that's the moment which appears the phenomenon of true, and it is really extremely important for us both that the discovery that the information about sacral art in Catholic catechism, yes, is in a chapter about 8 commandments. 8 commandments. Not about liturgy, not about, I mean about 8 commandments. True and false testimony. That's an essence. So sacral art stay behind as important way of revelation of God as a martyrdom. As a martyrdom. Can you? I mean, that's a biggest weight which we experience. In fact, so it shows also a responsibility of artists, because as author of Catechism says on visual arts, which is partly a theater. The visual art in a church, it's a true testimony on that what is not discursive. So in a divine things, there are some who may be referred in a word, and a part of that may be referred through pictures. And I strongly believe through performance, what I experienced because of you actors and you. Thank you very much for that 2 days ago in that very courtyard. What was very important experience.
Dear friends,
Yeah.
once more?
No, I feel like asking myself after this, but I wouldn't know. I'll
So, dear
stop.
friends, thank you all for taking part in this lecture. And thank you, Professor Kilian, for your most interesting talk, once again. This was the last of JP2 lectures organized by the St. John Paul II Institute of Culture this academic year. We wish you a successful exam session and good vacation time. And invite you back to Aula 11 of the Angelicum for another round of inspiring talks by distinguished scholars from all around the world in October. Thank you very much.
And of course, small information for students of JP2 studies. Tomorrow we'll see on seminary what time, do you remember?
20 past 12.
20 past 12 to talk on that lecture on a seminary. Thank you very much.